norm reference testing, NRT. Later on, we'll talk about CRT, criterion reference testing. Now, with respect to score referencing, norm reference scoring assumes relative meaning, while criterion reference scoring assumes absolute meaning. So let's take a look at norm reference test. Okay, where's my mouse? Norm reference test. So the idea is to compare examinees' performance with that of the norm group. All right, so we have a norm group, and then I'll talk about how to establish the norm group later on. All right. Now, almost 99% of all standardized tests, let's say, scholastic aptitude test, SAT, for students in the United States to get into United States universities, GRE, graduate record exam, to get into grad schools in Canada and the United States. And we have, of course, we have the one, LSAT for law school, MCAT for medical school, CTBS, Canadian Test of Basic Skills, is first adopted in Newfoundland, Nova Scotia. Then I think now Ontario and the rest of Canada have adopted it, but then under different names. Okay, but it's basically the same thing. All right, or TOEFL, test of English as a foreign language, for those people, for those students who would like to come to Canada or the United States to study, they must pass this test. So they are all NRTs, okay, norm referenced. Okay, now what is that? The standing of a student's score relative to the norm group is reported, and usually percentile is used to report score. Now, let's take a look at percentile. Okay, let's say P, a score of P50. What does it mean? Let's say an SAT score, say, or GRE, for example, say here 500. Okay, that is equal to P50. That means 500, a score of 500 is better than 50% of the people taking the same test. So that's percentile. Right? If it is P80, if a score, let's say a score of 700 is P80, that means 700 is better than 80% of all the people taking the same test. Right? So they use percentile for reporting. Okay, for reporting. All right, so the idea, of course, the idea is to discriminate among all individuals according to their degree of achievement. In a classroom situation, we have something you are number 1 in the class, number 2 in the class, number 15 in the class. That is norm referenced reporting. All right. Now, so let's take a look at criticism. Then I will talk about the norm group. The criticism here is that the norm referenced approach does not inform us the important information of what and how much the students have learned. Okay? Different norm groups will present quite different percentile ranks. Okay, for example, there are two classes. Class A, Class B. Class A full of what? High IQ students. Class B, well, let's say low IQ students. Okay, now let's say the same test administered to the two groups, and then one examinee say is one subject one. Subject one in this class here is one. This one is one. Numero uno, number one in this class. Okay, so that is one. Norm reference reporting. Let's say this is a norm reference test. Number one in class B. But the same subject compared to what? Compared to student in what? In class A. So this subject may be what? Number one, 39. Same score. Okay. But then what? So it depends on which group you are talking about. So that's the one. That's the major criticisms towards one norm referenced test. Okay. All right. So norm reference reporting is sample dependent in the absence of an established norm group. If there is no norm group, it is sample dependent. However, when we have a norm group, then the situation is different. Okay, let's say, how do we establish a norm group? Okay, let's take a look here. Okay, now, say, first of all, let's take a look at what standardization of norm reference test. How do we standardize it? We use a large representative sample. Okay, how large? Let's say, most of the time, it depends on what procedure. I'm not going into this because it will take me several hours to discuss this, whether we are using classical test theory or item response theory or some other theories, okay? But I'm not getting to that. But let's take a look. Well, let's say most of the time is what? We have, say, 5,000 subjects. Okay, 5,000 subjects. Now, representative sample. What does that mean? That means these subjects here, they are sampled from what? From the population where what? Most of the students who are going to write the test, where they come from, most of them say urban or rural area, sex, age, race, that type of thing. Okay, so we sample from the population of students. Who will take this norm reference test, or who will take the standardized test. Then we randomly, remember the word random, okay? We randomly select 5,000 subjects. So the likelihood is good that these 5,000 subjects, they form a good representative group to represent the population. Okay, so anything we find here, we can extrapolate the results back to the population. So that's what is meant by a representative group. Then what? Let's say what? We have what? We have a sample. We have a sample. I don't know. Say 1,000 good test items. Okay, but we only need about 400. Okay, so we administer 1,000 items. Of course, first of all, we have to work out the awkward administration and scoring procedures. Okay, then we administer 1,000 items to this norm group. Okay, and then what we identify, we do item analysis. We identify bad items. We discard bad items. What are they? Biased items, say items that have sex bias, that have other biases. Okay, we discard them. Extremely easy or difficult items. Now, extremely easy. If everyone could if everyone could get this item correct, or a difficult item where no one could answer this item correctly, then for these two types of items, they don't discriminate. Is that right? See, they do not discriminate among this group. Is that right? So they are useless. Is that right? Because these items do not provide any information about the examinees. Right? So we discard them. Then items not measuring the construct to be measured. Let's say we are measuring verbal. Okay? But then, let's say we're measuring math. But then there is a strong verbal component in the item. Okay? Students must understand must pass through the comprehending all those words, wording, everything, so they understand what the item is asking them to do. Okay, if that is the case, this item is not good. Is that right? So it's not measuring the construct to be measured. Right? It is measuring verbal, but then the item is supposed to be measuring math ability. All right. So now, after we have discard the bad items, and then say remaining, we have remaining 400 items. Okay. So we have the 400 items remaining, and we administer these 400 items, because some items we may have to modify. Okay, some are bad, but then we can modify them. Okay, that type of thing. So we administer the 400 items again to the norm group. Okay, so that we obtain we obtain to say item difficulty. Let's say there are more parameters. Let's say we have item difficulty. Then we have an idea how difficult is the test formed by these 400 test items. Now, then here, using these 400 items, we measure the representative group. We measure their performance. So from this group here, we obtain the group mean. All right. And of course, we obtain the standard deviation. We obtain a lot of stuff. Okay. All right. So that's good. So then this one here, 500 subjects, used to calibrate the test item. They also from the norm group. Then let's say what another what examinees. Let's say what here examine another subject. Let's call it one whatever. Say subject 10. Then we have what this subject test score. Okay, we have this subject test score. Then using what we have a norm group, then we could what? Then we could tell how what is the perform, how does this subject perform in relation to the norm group, and we could calculate what the percentile rank for this subject. All right. So then here, this is called the norm reference reporting, and this one here is a norm reference test. Most standardized tests, they want you obtain test items like this, and apply these or these test items to the norm group for the second time, and we'll be able to come up with a lot of statistics to form the norm group. All right. So anyway, NRT, okay, NRT can be used for school admission. That is to say, anyone with percentile was 70 or above will be admitted. Right? Scholarship, anyone with percentile was, say, percentile was 95 will be given a scholarship. Right? Placement, classification, classified as what? I don't know, advanced student, that type of thing. Right? So, uses of NRTs, we just discussed, will be to assess the range of ability in a large group, right? In a large group, say, after this is a norm group, and then we'll have what? 20,000 students taking this test, okay, that type of thing. So some students have learned more than others, and it seems worthwhile to employ measurement techniques that identify these students. Furthermore, students want and deserve recognition for accomplishment. So the other uses, of course, will be for decision making. Okay, it what say selection for course here for admissions, selection for scholarship, advancement, and so on. Right? So that is what NRT norm reference test. Compare the individual performance to that of the norm group. Okay, and we have an idea. So once we have say 5,000 subjects as the norm, then the norm will be quite stable. It won't be in this situation, right? Because this is a large sample, right? So in standardized test, this scenario won't happen, right? Okay. Criterion reference testing, okay. CRT. Sometimes it is called objective reference test, sometimes domain reference test. All right. So CRT, it uses the absolute notion of interpreting test score. For example, use percent. Okay. For example, if the test score is say, for example, the test score is 90%. What does that mean? That means the examinee knows 90% of all the content materials. Oh, okay. So you see here, it is quite different from NRT. Right? Now, of course, here it is also called objective active reference, domain reference. Okay, so I will explain what that is. Okay, also given that what CRT has content validity, that is to say, all the items are measuring what the CRT proposed to measure. Okay, so score interpretation could be generalized to the entire domain or the entire objective if and only if we have what random sampling of test items from the population domain. Okay. Otherwise, what the meaning of a CRT score is rather meaningless. Right? Okay, so let me give you an example. Okay, let me give you an example. All right, now let's say here the population of, say, let's say this is the domain, say 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication. Okay, so this domain here, or you can call it objective. This is the population of all 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication items. Or let's say, use our imagination. Let's say we have all 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication items here. All right. Now, if we do that here, say we draw a random sample of, let's say, 50 items from here. Okay, then we administer these 50 items to the students. Then let's say a score of 50% on this test. If it is random, this is called a criterion reference test. That means this subject knows 50% of all the items in this domain. So that's the meaning of criterion reference test. If another subject or the score is 85%, then that means this subject knows 85% of all test items here. Okay, so so that is the meaning. That is the meaning of criterion reference test. All right, you compare the performance with the criterion. All right, now let's say another good example of CRT is the driver license multiple choice test. Most of you have taken this test in Ontario or in any part of Canada. Okay, we do have the multiple choice test, the written test for driver's license. Okay? You must attain something like 93% the last time I checked it, to pass it. 93% pass it. Just assume 93% means here. These are all the rules and regulations about driving on the road. Okay, so then they have they have a CRT test. Okay, that's the driver's license test. If you score 93%, you pass the test because here here, the government assumes that you will know 93% of everything here. So that's good. Okay, that is good. Okay, so that is what criterion reference test. Okay, now other examples, other criterion reference tests are mastery test, minimum competency test for basic skills, reading readiness test, the name of a few. All right, the name of a few. Now, so let's say what for school to be domain reference, domain must be clearly defined. That is clear, is that right? Sometimes it is objective reference. The objective must be clearly defined. Okay. And the second point here, items are a random sample from the domain C. Random sample. Okay. Now, the random sample does not guarantee a representative sample, but the likelihood is good. Okay, the likelihood is good. All right. And finally, items must have content validity. That means all the test items here, they are measuring what the domain is, or what the total test purpose to measure here. The domain here, or the objective is to know two-digit multiplication. So, and what all the test items must be measuring this. Right? So that is what we mean by what criterion reference content validity. All right, good. Now, used for what? CRT. Now, hold on. Okay. So we use what CRT here in a lot of times satisfying what behavioral objectives, and in somewhat I just mentioned measuring what mastery of basic skills, and to determine sometimes if students have the prerequisites to start to start a new unit, or have the prerequisites to start the grade. Another one here, most of the time used is in was CAI, computer assisted instruction, also called what? CAL, computer assisted learning. Okay, so what they do is the following. Okay, so here, module one. So the computer presents all the materials in module one. Then this is a mastery test. To see, so this one is a CRT. To see if the learner has mastered module one. If not, if no, then the computer will reroute or route it back, retake module one until you pass it. Right? So that's the end. For those who have passed, then see here, then they go to module two. That is a bit more advanced than this. Then here, another one. Let me change the color. mastery test number 2. If they flunk, okay, fail, okay, that they pass. All right. Okay. Well, let's say what? For those who pass, then this is what? Module 3, and so on. Okay. Now, then you see here, all these are one. These are one criterion reference test. This is criterion reference test. Okay. So that is one a good use of what criterion reference test. Right? Okay, let's move on. Let's take a look at what the differences between what Nrt and Crt. All right, so here Nrt, let's say what most was standardized test. They sample broad domain of knowledge. Now take a look here. Norm reference tests, they are long. Let's say what TOEFL, GRE, SAT, MCAT, all of them here. They report the test time is 3 hours. Okay, so for example, SAT is 6 hours. Okay? 3 hours of verbal, 3 hours one analytical, and GRE is same. Okay, so long, very long, many items. CRT is very short. See, look at the driver's license test. It's very short. It's all right, very short. All right. So NRT is long because what? It samples what broad domain of knowledge. Okay. Let's say what the GRE graduate record exam. The test items, the test asks you a lot of stuff here. You have to know a lot of things before you are admitted to graduate school, say a master's degree or a PhD degree. All right, CRT is rather narrow range of objectives, like what? Like 2 by 2, like the 2 by 2 digit by 2 digit multiplication, very narrow. Okay, and even our driver's license test is very narrow. Everything is geared towards knowing the rules and regulations on the road, traffic signs, that type of thing. Right? Okay, the results for NRT are used to describe groups of people and may not be closely tied to instruction. That is to say, most of the NRT, they are also called the aptitude tests. Okay, aptitude, so how good you are. It's a name that that predate what IQ tests, right? So it is very much like IQ test, but then of course here it is more academically oriented. Okay, but then IQ tests are also academically oriented, right? Okay, so it is because of the broad domain of knowledge, therefore we cannot, it is almost not possible to teach standardized tests, like to teach for the tests, teach for a standardized test. Okay, very difficult. The results are used to describe an individual and are directly related to instructional decisions. I see here, It is highly related to instructional one. Decisions, is that right? Whether you pass or fail. Okay, so so the result here, whether you pass or fail, they're related to what the instructional decision. Okay, let's say what here 93%. Okay, whether you have studied it enough. Nrt, the purpose is to assess a more general achievement status. Right? It's very much like IQ. Okay? Here, CRT is to make dichotomous classifications. What is dichotomous? Yes or no? Two choices, right? Pass or fail. Admit and do not admit. Okay? Just to make dichotomous classification. Scholarships, no scholarship. Okay? That type of thing, right? So CRT is basically used to do that, right? Nrt, individual, is what judged compared to the performance of a representative group. Okay, performance of a representative group. Okay, and you know what we have to form this group. Okay, it takes a lot of time. Okay, individual is judged on his or her own performance against a criterion. Okay, so the criterion here is what knowing 2-digit by 2-digit multiplications. Okay, the driver's license has no other rules, regulations, and the road signs. Okay, that type of thing. So it's what the own performance against a criterion. Nrt evaluation standards are relative in nature. Remember percentile. Okay, compare what the examinee's performance with that of the norm group. So come back with the say a percentile. Okay, so used in making guidance decisions and selection decisions, guiding decisions, whether you should go on to grad studies or whether you should take this subject or not, that type of thing. CRT evaluation standards are deterministic, pass, fail. Remember dichotomous classification, pass, fail. Okay, and then a third one, admit. Okay, don't admit, that kind of thing. Scholarship, no scholarship. So evaluation standards are deterministic in nature and often used in placement, certification like driver's license, certification decision, and instructional decisions in CAI or CAL. Nrt are often much longer than CRTs. Here we may have, let's say, 400 items. Okay. So therefore more reliable. Now, not normally, all the time, okay, all the time, the longer a test is, the more reliable is the test. Okay, more reliable means what? Let's say an examinee taking the test, they're taking half of the test time one. So the score is 80%. And then take the second half of the test. Okay, and then also 80%, assuming all the test items are measuring the same objectives here. Of course, a lot of objectives. Let's say the first half of the test and the second half of the test, they are from from the same so many objectives. Okay, because I'm not getting into statistics, so I'm just trying to help you understand that reliable means it is consistent. That means the test will give consistent results. Okay, I think that is good. Right? CRT are shorter. For example, the driver's license test, okay, or the test here usually no more than 20 items or 30 items, okay, very short compared to NRT, and therefore less reliable. Right? The longer test is more reliable. You got it? Okay. Now, you say that in school, a lot of time what we have was sort of reporting. Let's say the reporting is that what your score, but of course it's not like nipping. Your grade is, well, let's say your grade is 80, what do you want? 88%. Okay, so that's an A. But then you have no idea what is the class average or the mean of the class. Is that right? In the Web Advisor, you're not given that information. Let's say if the mean of the class, let's say the mean of the class is what? Is 93%. Then this performance is below average. Is that right? All right, that is below average. Okay, now in a class normally in one, I think what I didn't take elementary school in Canada, so in the Far East, there are grading system very similar to this, but then what? On top of this here, they also in the report card, they also tell you your rank within the class. Your rank within the class. So you may be number 2, so you are number 2 in the class. Only one student is has a better performance than you do. Okay? So in that scenario, we are combining what? Combining CRT with NRT. But I have to assuming this is 88%. Here it is what? It means what? 88% of the objective. If there is random sampling from the population of items. If not, then what? Then it is not CRT. It is just NRT. Okay, you just you're number 2 in the class, so that's NRT. All right. Okay. So I hope you have some ideas about NRT and CRT, and we will talk about this. We will use it later on. Good. Thank you.